The topic today is geriatric psychiatrist as an administrator. Um, well, the question is, does any one of you want to be an administrator? Do all of you want to be administrators? And what is it exactly do you want to be the administrator of? Do you want to stay in healthcare? Do you want to be out of healthcare? Do you want to stay in psychiatry, or do you want to become some kind an executive, healthcare executive? So at this point of your career, you have to start asking yourself questions. It's like if you want to become an academician, it is not when you are 45, if you went to medical school at 20, something that you decide you want to be an academician. You can do it, but it will be harder. At times, it's not because you make a choice to become an administrator. Things happen. You selected, okay, or after a few years, you do it well. People bring that to your attention, and then you have a good mentor, or you choose to belong to organizations. There are plenty of them that will sharpen your skills, and then next thing you know, you're in an administrative position. I will try to illustrate as often as I can with my own career, and because I don't want to make it about myself, but I have to say that I probably fell in the last category. I I didn't. I'm an immigrant. I came to this country the same year I got into residency training. So the last time I had in my mind one day is to become what I became, a hospital vice president. And at 28, I wasn't thinking about stuff like that. At 32, when Dr. Cohen asked me to become the first fellow, I wasn't thinking about that. So it just happened. But so we try to divide this into two categories: how to become a leader in general, and we'll specify. We'll get into healthcare in particular, and in psychiatry. Usually, one starts at what level? Either we do outpatient or we do inpatient. If we don't do that, it's because very early you choose to go into academia. You do a combination of things. You do some teaching, you do some administration, you do some research, or you do some patient care. You can administration is by itself a totally separate animal. You can combine it with other things, but if you're going to do it well, this is all you have to do. Unfortunately, at the beginning of one's career, you're not given that choice. If you bring grant money, let's say you take Michael, you bring grant money. Depending on how much grant money you bring, they say, well, you spend so much time doing this and so much time doing that, until you can bring enough grant money that you can decide what to do 100% of the time. Okay. And some people call leadership the art of taking risk, and management the science of mitigating those risks, because there will be a lot of risk management when you do any kind of administration. Even if you are born an administrator, even if you are a born administrator, you need constant growth to become an excellent administrator. There has to be a commitment to continued personal growth. And as I said earlier, there are many different ways of doing that. And you have to understand that you have to evolve. The skills you have when you start will not be enough to make you a good leader or to make you an excellent leader. So there has to be a commitment to evolve. And the first thing you have to do, whether you are in the inpatient unit, where you are in academia, overseeing a whole program of fellows, or in academia, you want to dedicate yourself to research. At the very beginning, you have to have a vision. You have to say the best way to do it is, particularly if you're in academia, this is 2020. By 2025, I would like to be doing this. By 2030, I would like to be doing that. By 2035, I would like to be at that level. Okay? And the same way later on, when you are leading people, you have to have a vision also. Whenever we talk about leadership, the term vision is always connected. And you have to mentor others, and you have to be expected to be mentored. And you have to stimulate creativity. You always have to bring something new. Otherwise, nothing changes in your environment. And if you're going to be selected to become leader, it's because you've done something better, it's because you've done something different. Okay? And how do you choose to do something better and different? You go with the flow, and an idea comes up. You have a different way of managing this unit. You have a different way of bringing productivity, and then people notice, and then it happens. Then, so either you have the talent, or you have the experience, or you have both. Okay, some people are visionary leaders. They are born like this. And one mistake not to make quite easily is leadership is not power, and power is not leadership. With leadership, power will come. You have to be very careful how to use it. And I forgot who said that in politics, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, but there are some competencies that you must have, okay? And as I said, you can read a lot of books. That's one way of doing it. Or nowadays, you get whatever information you have on the internet, but books are books. Nothing will ever replace books. And there's some organization like Association of Health Healthcare Executives. It comprises all CEOs, all CFOs, Chief Financial Officers, all CNOs, Chief Nursing Officers, all CMOs, Chief Medical Officers, and other leaders in most, if not all, major hospitals in the country. Okay, AHCE, Association of Healthcare Executives. They used to meet every February or March in Chicago. You can Google them. And then all the materials you will ever need to consult, to buy, to go over at any given time, it's going to be there. Anybody who ever published a book is going to be, sitting there making sure that you can avail yourselves of these books. All the big guys present. Whether we're talking about Yale, whether we're talking about Stanford, any big Mayo Clinic, all the chief executives are there. I had the privilege to present to this group in 2005. At the time, Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center, believe it or not, was at the avant-garde of health technology. And the project was to show, to demonstrate how combining, connecting pharmacy with the inpatient units electronically, how that could improve both quality and productivity. And later on, I will talk about many types of dualism, things that you can go home with. because there are ways to summarize everything that I'm going to be saying, and there's some pearls that you just have to remember, and that will guarantee a success. And when I talk about competencies, what am I talking about? These are personal or professional skills, okay? Knowledge, values, traits, okay, that basically guide the leader's performance, okay, the leader's behavior, and the leader's decisions, the leader's initiatives. So if you have those core competencies, you are good. It's a question of excelling at them. It's a question of sharpening them. It's a question of ameliorating them. In health, everything I told you may apply to any field and to any industry. The healthcare industry is somewhat peculiar because here we're talking about life and death. And we're talking about a lot of emotional situations. And the COVID-19 just brought that to the fore, okay? And a lot of financial challenges. That's common to all industries. But in healthcare, you don't have a lot of time. If you get a major deficit in 1 year, this is it. As a matter of fact, if you get a major deficit in 4 weeks, it's almost impossible to recover. Okay, so you have to make yourself quite knowledgeable about finances and healthcare financing in particular. Okay, whether you like it or not. Otherwise, you will still be the administrator of that unit. Okay, somebody will tell you what to do. Okay, or you become the chair, or you become the chief medical officer. Then in the last two cases, you will be directly held accountable for profitability or lack thereof. So somehow, some way, you have to develop some fluency in healthcare finances. And as things change, so will you have to change. And labor shortage is also a major issue in healthcare industry. And the medical technology itself, what I told you I did in 2004-5, that was the very beginning when nobody else was doing. You won't believe. Everybody says, no, you can do that. You cannot introduce technology in healthcare because of privacy laws and all kinds of stuff. And I have to share with you a little secret. Kingswood Jewish Medical Center was always the highest paying hospital in New York City. Very few people know that, even though it's quite next to us. And the nurses got paid better, doctors in general got paid better. As a vice president at the time, even if I were to be offered the same salary today, people would say, oh, you're making a lot of money. And that was 2005. So I'm not sure how things have changed. And you have to know the basics of spending in healthcare, because capital spending versus other kinds of spending. When do you get the MRI? When do you get the ECT machine? When do you get the last CAT scan? When do you get the last Doppler? You see, I'm not staying in psychiatry necessarily because I want you to think beyond psychiatry. I want you to think big. I want you to think healthcare in general. Okay, and the first dualism I will bring to you, things that you must think about, because this lecture I could have put about 6, types of dualism, and you go home with it. One is quality versus safety. So we're talking about buying stuff, but if you want to be big and you want to do better than hospitals in your neighborhood or hospital in your area, you have to have the latest technology. You have to have the best doctor. You have to have the best psychiatrist. In other words, both people and resources. Okay, then the first one is safety and quality issues, which are specific to healthcare and which are not specific to healthcare, but there's no area in business in general or any industry where quality and safety are paramount. Okay, anybody who does hospitality, whether it's restaurant, whether it's hospitals, healthcare, whether it's the hotel industry, and whether it's airline industry. Okay, these are the four that fall under hospitality. Customer experience is extremely important, and the quality of care that you give is extremely important. But there is an axiom that says when we say quality and safety, you understand clearly because you are in medicine, you are in psychiatry. But overall, for all the industries, one can say you can do well and do good at the same time. And that should always be one of your goals. And which one is first? It's like a chicken and the eggs. If you do well, you provide good quality of care. Every hospital in the country has patients respond to questionnaires, not given by the hospitals, but by outside organization that send questionnaires to the patients. And if you do well, I'm pretty sure people will know that. It will be published in newspapers. There will be case, certain situations, patients will refer the patients to you. And then next thing you know, you are making money. You are doing well. But for you to do well, you have to get high reimbursement. You have to be able to negotiate with the insurance companies, and you have to have a lot of patients at any given time. It's like the hotel industry. You cannot have one empty bed. If you have 6, 7, 8 empty beds in a unit, you are under a lot of, you are in big trouble. So you have to find a way. Therefore, you have to hire public relations people to make sure that they know about your business. For example, you are bombarded every day when you listen to the radio about the latest technology that NYU Winthrop had. Okay, now NYU Langone has it. But for about a year, that's all you kept hearing. Then you want to go there for prostate cancer. Okay, so you have to have good public relations to do that for you. What are the major competencies? One, self-awareness, compelling vision. You have to have a way with people, and you have to have a masterful style of executions. Self-awareness, this is what some people will call emotional intelligence. Okay, you have to be aware of your strength. You have to be aware of your limitations. You have to know what your hot buttons are, and you have to know what your blind spots are. Okay, and I always use myself as an example, particularly when things didn't go well. Okay, and because I remember every single case. The first patient I give Risperdal to, the first patient I give Zyprexa to, the first patient I put Clozaril on, what happens, has seizures within less than 24 hours. You are scarred. You have a scar that stays forever. So I would say one thing I was probably had as a plus because I was told repeatedly is because I was smart. I had smart in the sense of having a good IQ. But you know what? A good IQ never takes anybody too far. It only takes you somewhere, okay? And I remember having a discussion a few years ago with the dean of the medical school at NYU. We were having a meeting about minority affairs, and I happened to be there. I mentor, just for your information, I mentor postdoctoral students who at NYU And they have a special program called Pride, where doctors can go to learn to conduct research. It's a program funded by NIH, and which targets minorities, but it's not exclusively for minorities. And you spend basically 2 years in it. You come every summer for 2 weeks, and you have scholars who come from all over the country to teach, and you have two mentors that you can call at any time while you're working on your research project that you start during the first week of the 2-week period. So while talking to Dr. What's his name again? The school bear his name now, and that thing came up. And he said, I hope what you said, everybody knows it, because it's absolutely, totally accurate. IQ only takes you somewhere. What will really make you successful in life, anywhere, whether it's in your marriage, whether it's at work, is the emotional intelligence, is the EI, okay? And is what we call here a way with people, okay? And it's part of self-awareness too. You're aware of your limitations, okay? Of your strengths, of your weaknesses, your blind spots, your hard buttons, and impulse control, you know, how to relate to people, how to control your feelings, particularly the negative feelings like anger. All of that is part of self-awareness, but it overlaps with what I call a real way with people, you know? So the second one is living by personal conviction, okay? Secondly, you have to have a vision. You cannot say, just go somewhere and say, okay, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do that this week or at the end of the month. You have to have a 5-year vision, a 7-year vision, and a 3-year vision, whatever it is. And it has to be something that can be articulated, that can be communicated, because you're not Bill Gates, okay? You're not the president of Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And even if you are, you have to have plans, you have to have visions, but somebody will have to help you somehow. That's my point. If you don't have the resources. And then the only way that will happen, you have to have a vision and you have to be able to articulate and to be able to communicate that vision. And in order to do that, you have to earn the loyalty and the trust of the people that you work with, okay? And after you do that, you have to sell your vision, okay? Let's say you're working on the unit, inpatient unit, or you have 2-3 inpatient units. We're talking about a lot of people. We're talking about nurses, doctors, you know, social workers, and so on and so forth, psychologists, neuropsychologists. So you have to work as a team. Sometimes you build that team, sometimes it's given to you. But it's up to you to keep some of them and to let some of them go. But you cannot do it suddenly. Okay, you have to have a way of assessing them, either themselves one-on-one or in with their supervisors, so that you have a team that's cohesive, that you can actually work with. But once you have that team, that you communicate that vision, if you are, let's say, at a higher level, let's say as a hospital vice president, you're coming with a totally different idea. You have to have an ideal unit. It's like a model unit where things are going to be done right. And then the rest of the hospital will follow. When I was at Kingsborough Psychiatric Center and at Downstate at the same time, I was associate director of fellowship at Downstate, but the inpatient unit was at Kingsborough. I'm actually at Kingsbrook, and we wanted to have a model unit. Now, that never existed before. There was a concept in the literature, and I have to sell that vision to the entire team, all the assistant vice presidents, and the president himself, and also to consultants who came from outside, whom we paid a lot of money to, tens of thousands of dollars. Now, if that vision is not clear, simple, and then you have the next challenge of making sure that you can sell it. So you have to have the skills to do that. And then you have to have the skills of making sure that they buy it. And then you have the skills to make sure that they believe it's their own. They have to have ownership of it, even though it came from you. But when you are developing it, when you are articulating it, you make them so much part of it that people almost forget that it came from you and you only, because you make them part of it. So you have to have a buy-in, you have to have an ownership, and then you can move. You can move forward. And so in that vision also, you cannot just think everything is going to be positive. You have to have understanding of trends, what's happening in healthcare nowadays. You have to have a vision of uncertainties, risks. Even if you don't, the guy who is going to give the money, is if it's a grantor, a funding source, or if you're in a hospital, the chief financial officer is going to want you to give a 1-year plan or a 5-year plan and wants to know exactly where the profit is going to come. If you tell him you're going to start making profit in three months, he's not going to believe you. Okay? So at least at the end of the first year, you can show that you're going to make profit. If that's not in the plan, forget about it. Okay? And then you have to show the rewards, what's going to happen. So that's the vision, besides the self-awareness. Then you have to have a real way with people. I told you there is some overlapping between the two, and emotional intelligence become part and parcel of that. And as I said before, you talk about controlling your emotions, controlling your feelings, knowing yourself, knowing your shortcomings, knowing your hard buttons, you work on them, get feedback from people to tell you, how you're doing, and listen hard, and make sure that you listen, you convey, verbally or non-verbally, the impression that you're actually listening, okay? Because that's the way you'll gain their trust and loyalty, and that's the way you will also will grow. You will be aware of your shortcomings, your hard buttons, because you had a meeting, things didn't go well, and you had your ideas, you presented them, but they weren't presented properly, because you don't have this way with people. And then the impulsive ways have to go, the poor impulse control. You have to listen like you mean it. You have to give feedback, okay? You have to let people give you feedback. You have to mentor people, and you have to let yourself be mentored. You have developed teams, championship teams, okay? And your staff has to be very, very energized. This is part of your real way with people. So you have the self-awareness, you have the vision, you have to have your way with people, and then becomes the execution. It has to be a masterful execution. I left Downset for a very, very, very short while. And I went to Kingsbrook Jewish. I became the chief of outpatient mental health services. And one of the first things I did was to start a memory disorders clinic. Okay? And we had something in the Daily News. That was November. It's not very busy. Here was my picture with a patient administering the mini mental state exam. We got 87 calls the first week. People from outside calling to come to the memory disorders clinic. So now you see we're talking about public